Hi everyone, my name is Elton Iván Alvarez Escalera, and today I'm going to present to you strategy instruction. It's a new topic which we're going to talk about and how to immerse with this topic with our students and as teachers. To introduce you in this topic, you have to know that learning is no longer restricted to the acquisition of content, but the acquisition of skills with which to learn this content. Hence, we turn to look closely at exactly how learning strategies can or could affect our classroom teaching. The area of teaching learnings about strategies is usually referred to as strategy instruction. We're going to check how strategy instruction does not necessarily mean teaching all students to the same learning strategies. We're going to know how to introduce those strategies in the strategy instruction. It is important to understand what strategy instruction means. And according to different authors, according to Oxford and Lever, strategy instruction is to help learners become more active, more autonomous, more self-directed, and more discerning of what strategies are best for them as individuals. They also mention that involves helping the students know more about themselves so they can try out, test, and become experts in using the strategies that help them the most. There is no way in we as teachers can give them strategies in order to acquire the second language. Strategy instruction create create and help students to develop their own strategy. So strategy instruction is a highly creative multi-level process for teaching students to optimize their learning strategies for themselves as individuals. And thus, in principle, strategy instruction is about helping students to develop their own strategy. And this refers also to social constructivist, so as to make them more effective learners. A current thinking in the field of learning strategies have moved away from the idea that strategy instructions should take the strategies used by good language learners. So they have to create their own strategy in order to make the best acquisition of the second language. Now, why do we have to use strategy instructions, we as teachers? Because um, we might find that the answer is quite simple, and is that it enhances the the learner's procedural knowledge. How does that make sense? Well, because it becomes more aware of strategies which they already use. In the past, they already used strategies, so those strategies may may be useful in the for the new knowledge. It applies task-specific strategies which help overcome nervousness, the inability to remember, the need to immediately produce language during oral communication. This is very important to mention because sometimes nervous the inability to remember, the to produce language immediately for the oral communication, um, does not create motivation in in the learner. So strategy instructions may take advantage on this specific task, and to monitor the effectiveness of the strategies they already use, to create new strategies or abandoning effective strategies by consciously and critically reflecting their own strategy use. We as teachers have to make them understand how we are going to use different strategies and which one is the best for them. It is important to mention how strategy instruction has to be present in the classroom. But first, I would like to talk about how two different outlier sizes in the past and questioned the effectiveness of strategy instruction. Kellerman in 1991 states that instruction which attempts to teach learners certain types of strategies may simply be a waste of time because the students already know how to use these strategies in their first language. And Jane Miller argued that insufficient research has been done to be able to affirm that strategy instruction is fully effective, but also emphasized that there are several factors that problematize its implementation because attempts to translate the theory behind strategy instruction in practice they have produced only qualified success. Other factors that complicate the implementation that we already checked in all the chapters is that teaching the strategy include cultural differences, age, students' educational backgrounds, student and teacher beliefs about language learning, and different cognitive styles. So we have to join all this information in order to create a new and there is no formula, secret formula for this strategy instruction. So we have to consider all factors and then we're going to find them for what type of learners we are going to use this strategy instruction. Now we already checked how strategy instruction involves and seems to imply students need to be encouraged to develop a repertoire of strategies and to learn how to deploy those strategies. And what exactly is the teacher supposed to do in order to create or to direct the students or the learners for those strategies? Well, it's an interesting question. Firstly, is it's important to remark that Chapman and Robin, in response of Reese Miller criticized that we already checked in the last slide, um, outlined that the following broad approach summarize that making strategy instruction effective involves different things. What kind of things? Discovering and discussing strategies that students already use for a specific learning task. Presenting new strategies by explicitly naming and describing them. Modeling the strategies, explaining why and when the strategies can be used, and providing an extensive practice. So this is not a formula or a secret or a shortcut for learning better or in a rapid way. Rather than that, we have this little framework that orientates how to take that task with our students. Teacher has responsibility and students has different responsibilities. Those responsibilities are that first, the teacher and the students has to prepare for in the present prepare and present and activate background knowledge and explain different models. That's the teacher responsibility. As we can see also it attends to the students has to attend participants. In the practice, teacher has to coach with extensive feedback. It is not it is not enough only teaching maybe a topic. You have to create feedback in order to involve that knowledge already learned was already learned. And the student has to practice his strategies with this guidance. And to evaluate and intend, the teacher has to encourage, transfer, and assess. The student has to evaluate strategies and to use strategies independently. Actually, that is the main topic of this, is to use learning strategies independently. That's what strategy instruction means. We have to use different teaching materials for this strategy instruction. And for practicing teachers, their students, uh, the most common exposure strategy instruction comes through course books. And we have seen that from the course book materials, including this subject, strategy instruction is now considered to be a fundamental part of the EFL. Examples of strategy instruction materials in course books can be found for all levels, for beginners, intermediate, or advanced English. And we have to make different questions in order to know what kind of course books we are going to use. For what level of English proficiency is the activity aimed? Already mentioned, beginners, elementary, intermediate, or advanced. What age and what type of English course do you think it comes best? So business English or general English? What type of strategies um, are being developed with this activity? A cognitive strategy, a metacognitive strategy, social, affective, it depends of the situation. And it has claimed that most current course books include sections which supposedly develop the learning of strategy use, and this focus on strategy instruction can be more less or more explicit. The specific learning strategy instruction books, this focus overtly on strategies and provides activities which encourages learners to reflect on their own strategy and use to develop new ones. The self-directing strategy instruction materials is these that are similar to the above, but they are designed to be used by students working alone rather than in a class with a teacher. These materials may be printed books or they may be multimedia strategy instruction. This is more autodidactical. So there is no, well, nowadays we have more resources in order to teach. We have platforms, multimedia on internet, videos on YouTube. So we can use all these tools in order to apply the strategy instruction. The implicit and explicit strategy instruction focus on strategy used in pedagogical materials that can be more or less explicit. When the focus is implicit, no direct mention of learning strategies is made, whereas in explicit strategy instruction, students are required to explicitly reflect on learning strategy use. So it depends if it's implicit. There is no necessity to ensure what kind of strategy they used. And when it's explicit, we have to ensure that our students are clearly using a strategy in order to acquire the language learning. The implicit or explicit distinction more usefully views as a continuum, and there are obviously degrees of implicitness and explicitness. So it would depend what kind of learning of language we are using. Teaching metacognitive strategies refers to the current instruction of the materials for particular emphasis on cognitive or metacognitive strategies. And we have to remember the difference between these two types of strategies. The first one is that cognitive strategy involves interacting with the material to be learned, manipulating the material mentally or physically, or applying a specific technique to a learning task. And whereas metacognitive strategy involves thinking about the learning process, planning for learning, monitoring the learning task, and evaluating how well done one has learned. So The difference between these two types of um, strategies are interesting. Um, both knowledge about learning, metacognitive knowledge, and cognitive knowledge refers to overlearning. So we have to evaluate in metacognitive, and cognitive is just the ability to mentally or physically apply the specific technique. We have established so far at this point that strategy instruction is necessary and beneficial for our learners. And there are a variety of materials in the market nowadays that will facilitate the teacher job in this area. However, that it has been pointed this, um, unless teachers are fully aware of nature and how the teacher is going to apply the strategy instructions, they will be unable to effectively help students if they are not well prepared. This awareness may, in many cases, affect and represent a conceptual shift to the teacher in his her way of thinking about the nature of learning and teaching. So there are different roles that can be applied in order to improve this issue. We have to be a diagnostician teacher, and this role consists of identifying the students' current learning strategies and making the learners more aware of them so as to improve the learner's choice and the utilization of these in other strategies. The learner training makes the teacher train learners in the use of strategies, whether explicitly or implicitly. We already talked about that. And coach, a teacher who's running the as a coach. Teachers work in individual learners to develop their language learning strategies. The coordinator teacher, whereby teachers oversee the individual learners' study program supporting changes in direction as necessary, allowing a fluid syllabus with the appropriate degree of structuring it. And finally, the researcher, the teacher that can research his or her performance in all other roles. Finally, we have to know that there will be always issues in these strategy instructions. What kind of issues? Well, if as a teacher one were to decide to implement a consistent program, our shortcut, our secret formula for the strategy instructions with students, there are several issues that we would need to check. Some of them that are should the strategy instruction be in a short term or a long term? How long will it last? Will it last a class? Will it last a term, a year, in regular intervals? Should the treatment of the strategies be implicit or explicit, or in the terminology of Oxford's, should be blind or strategy plus control, or a combination of approaches? Should the teacher try to cover a comprehensive list of different strategies, or should the focus be on a limited number of strategies? There are a lot of questions about how to solve these issues, and there is no clear answer for this. It would depend in many factors that we already checked in the last topics. So our our necessity, and we have to, as teachers, we have to analyze the situation, to analyze the context, to analyze the age, to analyze the different issues that can be present, and that's what made us teachers. Finally, to conclude with strategy instruction is that we as teachers have the responsibility in the materials in order to teach them the new language. But at the end, we have to promote the learning strategies, and one of them is the strategy instructions. But there is no shortcut to teach English. So we have to analyze the situation, the context, the age, the different factors that may affect our learners in order to acquire the new knowledge in this subject. So nowadays, we as teachers are facilitators of information. That is what a constructivism talks about. So I have to improve and help them with different learning strategies, and we have to know, we have to study what kind of strategies we have to apply in order to create that knowledge for them, to facilitate that knowledge, to motivate that knowledge. So that will be our conclusion. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and this is my reference. Thanks for your attention, and I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.